In the last video help, we were discussing the purchase orders and vendor information. And as we start to leave that area, what you see on the balance of the main menu are what I call ancillary screens. And basically what a lot of these are list. You see where that says list by them? These list items are fields that have drop downs in them that you can edit those particular fields, like the tax rate. For example, you come in here, you do an add new from the do action, and it'll create a new record, and then you can put in your tax. In the drop down, if you have multiple taxes that you can be like city, state, and whatever, and then you do a combined tax. So if you're declaring your taxes, you can go ahead and do it as one tax. It just depends on the state. It's kind of an interesting way you have to file your taxes in certain locations. We have a nearby city that has a county tax, a city tax, and then the state tax. Depending on where you live, where the border lines of those are, you might end up by paying all three of those. And so it's kind of an odd situation. So there could be, where your business is located is what we're saying, or where you're doing your actual sales at. Sometimes you actually will find that if you are in an area where there are sales that you're doing, you may have to use the tax rate in that area, and especially in the country that you're at. If you're taxed a little differently, like in a province or something like that, then you need to be able to come in here and then make your changes. So let's go over and look at some of the rest of these. We have a work order status list, similar to the other one where we were doing things like pending and needs parts and completed and so forth. You just add whatever you need and add those in here, and this way it overrides the list that is in the iPad or iPhone, where you now can edit it, and you can do that live where you're actually working in the app and change it, and then go back to, say, like an invoice or a purchase order and change it exactly with the new fields being in there. You can have those to add to the invoice or whatever. Let's take a look at the next one, which is the sales report and sales inventory report. Now, these are kind of in depth, so I'm going to do one more last thing. We already looked at the mileage report and the payment, and I'm going to skip over those because we already touched on those. So let's first of all go to the sales report. This is actually a pretty straightforward sales report, the way it works. I'm going to show all the records. Okay, we got all the records in there. Now, if you're going to do a sales report, it's going to have all the data for all the records for all the work orders that you've done, work order number one and so forth, down through all the different records that are in there. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and do a find for the record that you're looking for, and then bring up that record, and it'll have the items within that record for the sales and the summary of the items for each item that you worked on in there. For example, what is the work total, work date, the invoice total, the total for the subtotal, the tax rate, and the amount to date that has been paid. And then here's where I was talking about where you have the red thing on the sales report. If you're owed money from somebody, like the 9623 we saw in that one invoice, it's going to turn it red, and then it's going to give you a grand total down here of all the money that you have not collected to this point. So what this basic report does, it's you collecting information and money from the people if you do time payments or if you're going back to do more service and add parts in, say like a second day, and you either do a new work order for the next day because they are date rated as far as when they were actually done. You may want to take a partial work order for one and another one, and then print the report for that particular work order based on the client that was for that work order. And you'll see that up here. It's going to have the name and the location of the client, in this case, up at the top of the work order. You can also, in this case, you need to put these in on the work order when you're creating it, or if you don't have them in there, it's not going to function correctly for the data that you want to use in the fields. Okay, so in order, say for example, if I did a find and I looked for the record and I came back, it would probably drop some of the header information. So what you want to do is just run the report by clicking this button, and what it does is it recycles the report and gives you your grand totals and your subtotals. If you don't see grand totals here, it's because you have not run the report. So that's a pretty important step to do so that you get the correct data when you're actually running it. And as you saw those little circles around the dollar signs in here, this screen does have the ability to change money symbols, so you can change to a different country or region where you're using a different kind of currency and the money symbol's different. Now, Down here you're going to see the sum total for labor, parts, and tax, and also for sum of all sales. So if you added these up here together, this would be the grand total for all the items and then anything that's outstanding to be collected. This is a pretty straightforward report. It should be very simple for people to use. If you have questions or you need help on it, you can always contact us if you need more help. Let's go to pop. Next, we're going to go to the application navigation and go to the inventory report. The inventory report also is quite simple to understand. Basically, you have the service part number that you're working with in the inventory, the service part number from the standpoint of the vendor information as well, and the vendor part number. So you can identify the item, and then there's a visual of the actual item. And some of the important things that are in here is where you're stating your high and low levels that you want to be at, where your current used ones are. Quantity on hand is 1. So in this case, if you're looking at this, we use 2, we have 1 for 3, and we're short by 1, or by 2, pardon me. So you see that there's an actual red flag come up here and say you need to order 2 to get back to your low level. So, or you can additionally add some more if you want to get to your high level. So you have that feature of being able to do it right here and see which one you want to do. Of course, you can do a find in here like you do the other records and go ahead and look for certain things like either a narrative as far as a name or anything that's within any field you can ask for. For example, if this said, hood on a car, and there was another one, you could find hood on cars, for example, and look at those and see pictures of them and see what the situation is. Or what you can do, which is quite interesting, is do a negative look. So you can go in here and you can do your find and then put in there anything that is less than 1. So you could do even a less than 0.5, do a minus 0.5, and that way everything that is anything less than 0.5 will show up, and then you'd have all your red ones in there as far as those are concerned where you have a low level. So, or you can just do what a lot of people do. They just go screaming through the record looking for everything that says quantity that they need, or they look at their high and low levels and just instantly recognize where they're going to have to buy some items. Or obviously you can do omit records that are not in the list and print out everything else that needs to be ordered and then just order them from that sheet if you wanted to. Also, it's just as easy to go ahead and do a PDF file or something like that and then create that and just go ahead and go from that as well. We showed you how to do print, then PDF or view, or just create a file form of the records that need to be ordered. Now, when this prints, it's not going to print the images. It's only going to print the data from over here. If you wanted to come back in here, and then as you order them, just go ahead and put the orders into your purchase order system. That's the way I would do it. Okay, thank you for taking these videos. If you have any questions, as I said before, we're always available on the website for developer support during the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Mountain Time in the USA.